class that you have specific questions about new construction before we get started. We'll start in like 5 minutes.
Whoopsies.
Let's hear some expectations, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel the chicken dip in there.
I can't
There's
control
the
it.
pasta and I like literally spilled it all over myself.
Go back 3, go forward 2.
I know that ham is mine.
Unless you look a little quicker.
Gus said, he's like,
I don't
make
like
sure you thank
responsibility.
Jonathan. I was like, I already told him thank you. He's like, well, make sure you say it again.
What's your team leader?
No, I like to delegate responsibility.
Here's his quandary for the weekend, but a babysitter.
I was just thinking that very thing. Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
I have a college student that's a great babysitter here.
As long as she doesn't hang out at bars, Taylor's okay with that.
She doesn't even have a driver's license, so perfect. She goes to bed at 8 o'clock.
All right, 15 participants.
I think we'll probably have some people drift in and drift out.
There we
Yeah.
go.
We got drifters.
All right,
Drifters.
Want to get it rolling? Let's go.
Let's go.
we're ready.
Thanks for joining me today. If you haven't attended one of my classes, I like to think they're very free-flowing. So if you have questions, chat in the chat box. If you're on Zoom, ask away. Rachel will help monitor the chat room, I think. People here in the training room, that's packed. If you have questions, just stop me and ask. So one of the reasons we're putting this on as the education committee, we thought it was really important for the real estate agents in our market center to understand the value of new construction right now because of the lack of inventory and how things are moving in the market. I saw a stat, I'm trying to think where I saw it, but the Home Builders Index, which I don't know who the governing body, like how they calculate this, but the home building index was at 96%, which is the highest that it's ever been in January. So what that means is that builders are feeling much more comfortable and confident investing in spec homes, utilizing their capital to actually put up structures. And I think that that's very important because that also goes into where there is a lack of supply, and that's obviously in the resale market. So if home builders are seeing that, the agents need to be seeing that. Now it's our job to communicate that to the consumer on why that's an option, maybe when they haven't even realized that's an option. And I'll give a perfect example. I have clients right now who are looking in Dublin, and they're at a price point where they could certainly utilize new construction. However, they think Plain City is too far away. And so we've been, 10 showings, whatever it is, trying to manage expectations as we go through this process. And so then I'm like, hey, if you go to Plain City, there's inventory. You may have to wait 2 months for the inventory to be completed, but you have now a surplus, not a surplus, but you have inventory that you can choose from, and then also create the finished product which you want. And so it was something that we started to go down that route. And unfortunately, they didn't decide to do new construction. Plain City was still too far away, but it's a conversation that I wanted to have because they need to be aware of all the options that are available. So that's one of the reasons why we put this together. So what we're going to cover, I think we need to really touch on our current economy and why we're in this environment right now where new construction needs to be an option for almost every home buyer that's out there, and what led us to this point. How to qualify your client to build, the value of new construction, or agent value in new construction. So how do you provide value in the transaction when there's a sales rep and then there's also your clients, when the main flow of conversation is typically going to be between the sales agent and the client or the builder or the buyer. So how do you help facilitate that, and how do you add value to that transaction? The types of builders that are out there, and also your commission, because various builders are offering different commissions. I think that's very important for every real estate agent to know. So we pulled a lot of statistics from the BIA and also the VSI, or VOT, Strategic Insights. So our current economy, I'm going to go back a whole year and try and piece this whole thing together. And coronavirus is playing, or the economy and coronavirus is playing a significant role in why we're in this environment. If you remember last year, January 2020, we were around 1.2 months of inventory, which we felt was still a very, like, it was lacking inventory. We were still having a hard time. We were still dealing with multiple offers. January 2021, it's half. We're at 0.6 months of inventory. So what has changed? I'm going to use the manufacturing industry as a perfect example because it's easier for me. There's a few different components, and it's an area I used to work for Worthington Industries. I talk to people a lot of times about steel, automotive, that sort of thing. So think about it this way. March hits, and I'm a business owner. One of the things I did is I went through my P&L and trying to figure out every area where I could cut costs. A lot of big companies did the same thing. Worthington Industries, Ford, GM, Chrysler, all these people figured out where they could furlough, where they could cut cost, right? One of the fastest ways you can cut cost is obviously in the manufacturing world is to limit how much you're buying, materials you're buying, push pause on all that. So we're now not getting things coming into the door that create an end product, right? So not only that, we're getting rid of a workforce, right? We're putting people on furlough, we're laying people off, that sort of thing. So now we don't have the people to make the product. And on top of that, we're trying to get rid of as much inventory as possible because that's additional capital on our floor that we now don't have control over unless it's shipped. Because we have control over where the money goes, but we don't have control when the inventory and the money is on our floors, right? So fast forward, what has happened since March or 2020, what has happened in the steel and the automotive industry is all the automotive makers have had record years. How? They've had no materials coming in. They haven't been able to produce as many materials, and it's a huge supply chain issue, right? Because they still are making cars, they're still selling cars, but the materials aren't being made for those cars. So this is why in the housing industry, we're in this exact same issue. The cost of lumber, I was talking, I guess maybe one of the reasons why I feel like I'm educated to talk about this class is I recently moved into a home that was built by a builder, and we moved in January of last year. So we started the process in March 2 years ago. And I was talking to my builder on Saturday about materials. The cost of lumber from when we signed our contract has gone up 130%. And there's other materials within the building world that he told me he's seeing increases of 400 to 500% on certain materials. And so all of this is part of that. The lumber companies that are out there, they're the ones who put pause on buying more material, doing the exact same thing that the automotive industry did. And so when you have this pent up demand and when you have this pent up supply chain issue, it's all going to go back down to price. Who's willing to pay the premium in order to get the product? And so right now we're seeing in the resale market, the prices are going up, 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 up because there's lack of demand, because there are no houses right now. And the same with new construction. Prices are going to continue to go up. The materials cost more, the salesmen need more, the trades need more. And that's kind of where we're at and why we're in this issue. Questions? So lack of inventory, pandemic, health of our economy. I will say this, it feels like we're in a bubble. I think everyone can really say like, okay, we've been on this rocket ship of trajectory. What's crazy is coronavirus has almost like added fuel to that rocket ship in a lot of ways. I would say that I think that it's created a bigger gap between the people that can and the people that cannot. And the people that can are the ones that are driving the resale market because they're the ones who are able to pay $30,000, $40,000 more and cover cash for an appraisal deficiency. Those are the people that are winning those offers, and those are the ones who are competing in the market right now. The cannots are the people who still need to rent. Yes.
Somebody asked, what builder did you use and were you happy with them?
Well, let's touch on that when we start talking about various builders and things like that. That's a great question, and yeah, I will tell you I was very happy with them, but we'll get to that in a second. So the health of our economy. I'm not any expert other than trying to read and trying to educate my clients, right? There's a few sources that I use on a daily basis to help me be the quote unquote, what we've heard in Keller Williams, the economist of choice, right? One of them is if you don't read the Morning Brew, I highly recommend reading the Morning Brew. You could probably, I'll send a link or whatever, and you guys can, every day at around 6 o'clock in the morning, it's probably about, it's a quick read. It's very entertaining. It's not biased. It's not going to look at if you're a Democrat, Republican, or whatever. And it gives you quick snippets on housing industry, markets, finance, all that sort of thing. I think it's very, very helpful for me. Because once again, guys, if we're not educating our clients on being home wealth advisors and which direction they should go and what they should be looking at, then we're not being the full fiduciary for our client. I'll say this until I'm blue in the face. Anyone can be Uber real estate and slap someone in the front seat of the car and drive them around. But if you're not getting into what they truly need and asking them challenging questions, then you're not doing them the full service, because those realtors that are Uber real estate, they're expendable right now in this market. And you will be left behind if you're not educating yourself on how to ask specific questions and get into your client's world to help guide them in the proper way. But the health of our economy, I don't think this is going anywhere anytime soon. And that's just my thought. There are some people who think that we're in this bubble and it's going to blow up in a year or 2 years. I think it's going to be longer than that. And some of the slides that you'll see here in a little bit, as far as trends and where things are going, I think kind of says the same thing.
Sorry, is this driving me crazy?
No, you're doing great, Rachel.
Thanks.
So here's some stats. This was so eye-opening. Look at this. Housing permits surged to 15-year high in Central Ohio in 2020. 11,864 housing permits in 2020, 46% increase since 2019, and the highest since 2015. And here's the funny thing. An estimated 14,000 new homes still needed to build each year to keep up with population growth. We are so far behind. We are so far behind with infrastructure. And this is roads, this is transportation, this is housing, this is everything as a picture, right? And Columbus, I think this means Columbus City population will see 1 million residents in 2050. Because if you look at Central Ohio as a whole, we're probably close to 2 million, I think some of the stats say. But I'll touch on the economy one piece more and why I'm so confident in the Central Ohio economy. Our three biggest drivers, guys, excuse me, for employment, education, healthcare, and government. Politicians always make money. Doctors and healthcare will always make money. And people are still always going to need to get educated. There's not an industry that's recession proof, but if there are three that are as close as they can be, it's government, healthcare, and education. And those really what drive Central Ohio's economy. And then if you go one step further, it's incredibly diverse as opposed to a lot of other Midwest cities where, like, I'm from the Detroit area. We got people from Cleveland, Cincinnati, right? That's heavy, heavy manufacturing. That's steel, that's automotive, that's plastics, that's packaging. And those industries typically will be hit first when it comes to some sort of correction in the market. Us, yeah, there'll be a correction, but I don't think it'll be as significant as other parts of the country. Questions on any of these stats? Let's go. Here's great. This is awesome. So population. This goes back 2020, 2010, and 2017. And you can see the population growth that's happening here in Central Ohio. Why this is important, why I want you guys to pay attention to the slide. You can see the two areas, I would say probably two areas of biggest growth. Franklin County, we can probably anticipate is going to be on that list, right? Columbus as a whole, it has had some pretty good growth. But if you go out of the nucleus of Central Ohio, which is Columbus and Franklin County, where are people starting to migrate towards, right? And you can see Delaware County is on there and Union County. So Delaware County is Olentangy School District, Lewis Center, and then Union County is kind of the outskirts of Dublin, where you get to Plain City and things like that. Those seem to be areas where people are focusing a lot of growth on. What's ironic about that is those are two of the wealthier counties in all of Ohio right now. And once again, we kind of talked about the haves and the have-nots. The have-nots are going to be, the haves are going to be the wealthy people. They're going to be the ones who are able to afford to build at the price point to which the builders are able to build, if that makes sense. I mean, it's hard to find new construction these days. I mean, in the threes, you can find it in the threes. You certainly can't really find it below threes unless if it's like a condo. But you can kind of see too, if you're focusing your business on, Licking County or Fairfield County, you certainly have seen quite a bit of growth in the last 7 years. This is an important slide. If you take away one thing from this entire class, it's this slide right here. I saw the slide and I was blown away. The amount of jobs that are added and the amount of permits issued for new construction are almost 1-to-1 going back 27 years ago. So if you're ever wondering how many permits we need, all you have to do is go to how many jobs did we add in 2020, 2021, 2022, and you're going to know how many permits we're going to need to sustain that type of growth. Thanks. Hopefully no one heard Lori on the Zoom call correct me in the back of the room.
Okay.
And so then we go to this slide here, which is, this goes back 27 years, and you look at the amount of, or the number of building permits issued and the amount of jobs added or lost in the last 27 years. So what you can see, and I'm talking specifically from 2010 to 2017 on the number of building permits issued. Obviously you can see, especially 2014, we added probably close to 25,000 jobs and we only issued maybe 7,000 permits. There's a pretty big gap there. And then what's even more, let's go back one. Sorry, Rachel, I didn't mean to. Oh, let's go forward one, if you could. There we go.
This one?
Yep, that's the one. What you can also see here, guys, is from 2006 to 2012, jobs plummeted, especially in 2009. And we all know what happened then. Even if you weren't directly impacted by your parents were somehow, some way, right? And so jobs were very minimal. And one of the reasons I believe that we haven't seen permits or new construction post-recession is because builders are still so scared to invest capital into the infrastructure, build spec homes, because if there is a bubble, they're the first ones who are out, right? People want to automatically get out of their contracts, and they can for a minimal amount of money. There's a lot of risk for builders, especially small builders, to put up the capital to build spec homes, to develop land, and that sort of thing. We're going to get into a slide later on, and it'll compare some of other markets in the United States versus ours. And I'll touch on this point, and I'll say right now too, Central Ohio, from what I understand, and other than just having conversations with people, there's a little bit more red tape than some other parts of the country on what it means to get various zoning permits and to go through that process. There's more bureaucracy in Central Ohio to, it's a lengthy process from what I understand.
So what is our time frame for permits? What are you hearing from the builders? What's it like, 8 weeks, 12 weeks? What is it?
I talked to Brian Smith at 3 Pillar and Evans Farm. They're waiting on permits that they submitted, 2-3 months ago.
Mm-hmm. So it's 8 to 12 weeks. And Delaware County is probably longer than that.
Yeah, and we talked about it in our committee meeting. Mm-hmm. And I'm speaking to Evans Farm because that's where I live, and I'm in conversation weekly with the developers there and things like that. And so if you think about, just Evans Farm, it's a massive project, right? We're talking close to 2,000 homes when everything's said and done. And the community stretches through Berlin Township, Orange Township, Lewis Center Mailing, Delaware County. I'm trying to think, there's probably a couple more. And all of these governing bodies need to have approval or say so in various zoning decisions. And when you're having to wait on that many people, turns into a very lengthy process. I think we're good. Any questions on this one? And this kind of goes into the future, right? 2020 to 2050. So let's just jump at 2020 and call it like the previous 30 years to the forward 30 years, right? Because that's what it is. And if you look at the blue line, you can see those are the permits that have been issued in Central Ohio versus what job growth projection is in Central Ohio. So the trend is still falling far behind on permits versus what the job growth is going to be. And the red line obviously is job growth based on the last 7 years. And the green line is job growth based on the last 27 years, if I'm not mistaken. So you can see the trend is we're going to continue to go up and up and up. This kind of speaks to the same thing, except in a different type of graph. But if we go to our rule of 1 permit for every 1 job added in Central Ohio, we got to figure out how to add almost 700,000 permits in 30 years. That is a lot of land acquisition. How does that even, and this goes back to why I feel confident in the Central Ohio economy, because there is so much demand for land and housing that we're still going to have a very strong base. The bottom is not going to fall out of the housing market because there's just so much pent up demand here. Housing unit needed to year 2050, and obviously you can speak, it's unreal. So if you go to Delaware County, 1990 to 2017, we've had, what was it, 259,000. And then in the past 7 years, it was over 100,000. So the growth is through the charts. And then you can look at the top one there is Central Ohio as a whole. It's not going to slow down. You can see the renter is also on there, and there's some significant growth from a rental standpoint, but our focus today is obviously in new construction. This is a great graph too. So we kind of talked about the haves and the have-nots, and I don't like having that conversation because it breaks my heart when I have to have a reality check with some of my buyers who don't have capital to cover an appraisal deficiency, and they're pre-approved with a lender, and I'm saying, yeah, the financial institutions say you're approved, but guess what? This market isn't. And unfortunately, you're gonna have to go back to renting for 6 months or whatever to save some capital in order to purchase in this type of environment. But you can see this is broken down by income. Who are the people that are purchasing homes? You can see that obviously it's the people that have a household income of $100,000 or more. And then that pendulum switches all the way to the people who are making $30,000 and less to where they're renting. And this is a trend that is going to be consistent probably going forward, unfortunately, unless if we can figure out how to create some affordable housing for people to purchase. And then this kind of like, so what price point are people looking to purchase in? Well, if a household income is somewhere around $60,000 to $75,000, this chart here says they're probably going to be in that $190,000 to $250,000 price point. Those are the homes that they're purchasing. If their household income is above $100,000, they're somewhere around $300,000 to $500,000. I typically like to use the 4X. So if your household income is $100,000, pretty much you should be around that $400,000 price point. So if you're 50,000, you want to be probably around $200,000. This is the sheet that, this is awesome. So look at this. These are building permits from 2010 to 2017 for various markets. It's 3 different markets in Central or in the US. They're very similar to ours, which is Austin, Texas, Charlotte, and Nashville. And you can see here the building permits that have been issued since 2010 to 2017, and we're well behind everyone else's pace. The only thing I can think of here is it's just so hard to get land zoned to build homes. Single-family homes, multifamily homes. And Austin's done a pretty good job of it, as you can see. Charlotte, Nashville, and we're behind. And that's one of the reasons that the resale market is where it's at right now, and the new construction market is where it's at. So how do you qualify your client to build? First off, I want to let everyone know you need to do everything you can to protect yourself. And I'm very grateful for Mr. Jonathan Tomko, who's on this Zoom call, because he said we need to be making sure that we talk to our agents about how you can protect yourself from your client walking into a model home and registering what they think they're just registering, but really they're saying, if you're not represented by a real estate agent, you are not represented by a builder. And that's one of the most important things for us to be able to protect ourselves. So how can you do that? When we have a buyer's consultation with every single one of our buyers, we get an agreement in place. And is that what this is? That's what this is? Cool.
You want to do the expectation? Well, that one's kind of out of order, but.
Let's go back to where it was. So what we do on the last page of our buyer's consultation is essentially there's a sheet that says, we can help you buy any home. We can help you buy a for sale by owner. We can help you buy a property that's listed by another real estate agent, and we can help you buy new construction. And I go in and I tell them it's a different transaction if you're working with new construction than if you're working with a resale. There's a sales rep and there's clients in a new construction transaction that typically will have the majority of the communication flow. You have to be tied into that communication flow, but you need to know that that's how the process is going to take. And you tell your clients up front, a lot of times the transaction is going to go smoothly, or there may be some speed bumps, but we're going to be able to get through the speed bumps. And 95% of the time, you're not going to need me to really put the brakes on things or to get involved. But that 5%, when you're going to need me to get involved, you're going to want me there for you to go to bat for you with a team behind me, such as a broker and leadership team to help navigate through any issues that might come up. So also, qualify your buyers, guys. We need to figure out where they're looking, why they're looking there. If it's even, there's no unicorns in the market anymore, right? There's no like magic properties that everyone thinks that they can find. So we have to make sure that they know that there's no magic unicorns. And then we have to give them other options that might be available in order for them to open their eyes. How much of a commute, like if you're going to concede somewhere, let's go through and rank every single one of your needs. If you're going to concede somewhere, is it drive time? So drive time, are you willing to go an additional 5 minutes or 10 minutes outside of your daily commute to look at an area such as Plain City or anywhere down in Pickerington where there's new construction being built? Are you willing to do that in order to see where there's a supply of inventory where we may not have to compete in an arena where, quite frankly, if you're competing with 30 offers, it's very challenging. So understanding what their true needs are, I think, is incredibly important in this market. And then also, do they understand the entire building process and what's available to them? Do they want to build from ground up? Do they want a spec home? I mean, are there spec homes that are under construction after framing and mechanical where it's only going to take another 2 months to be completed? A lot of times they don't know that. I don't know if we'll talk about financing a little bit, and maybe I'll tap into it now and then. But an interesting thing too about new construction, especially with some of the larger builders, they have their own in-house financing, and you don't typically close on the transaction till the construction is completed. So why is that beneficial for clients? Well, you could essentially have their house on the market and in contract by the time they close, or you could even have their property that they're trying to sell closed, funds are available, then they close on new construction 2 or 3 days later, and then they move into the new home and they have a week of possession in order to make that happen. It creates a different option than trying to do the traditional sell and purchase when you need funds available in the real estate market. Yeah, I think we're good. Let's go, Rachel. So how to protect yourself, set up a buyer's consultation. If you have the exclusive right to represent buyer, it's slippery. So in other words, if you have that agreement in place and you've already essentially settled on that 3%, and your clients then walk into a builder and the builder says, hey, I'm representing client A, and you're like, well, I have this agreement in place. It's up to the client to then compensate you for that 3%. Am I correct, Lori?
That is correct, according to the agreement.
According to the agreement. However, if my hope is that if you have that piece of paper and you show that to a builder, if the builder is operating at an ethical level, they're going to honor that agreement because you had that representation, you were working with them, and there's documentation before they walked into the open house or model home or whatever it is. All right, anything to that, Lori?
I would add that about 90% of them are not gonna honor it. And they're going to say to the buyer, you owe that money to that realtor. That's not my problem. And I'm only telling you that because I've heard it. So the deal is, what has to be sold up front, like you're saying, is your representation. Because the builder is not representing them.
Right.
He's selling his own, it is a for sale by owner, selling his own property. The reps are employees. There is no real estate license required. There are no fiduciary duties. If you can't sell that, then you don't know what you are. You are a fiduciary and you are worth that.
Right.
So that's how you get a buyer agreement signed, the fiduciary duties that you have, okay? And yeah, I've had two builders say, not our problem, when someone walks in the door, we don't owe you the money, the buyer owes you the money.
Well,
And they do.
and to Lori's point, that's why it's so important to have that conversation with your clients before you even start the process.
Right.
To let them know that there are going to be times when you're probably going to get frustrated in this market and you're probably going to have a conversation with your spouse or someone, and you're like, we got to figure out a new alternative. And that communication flow may not come back to you because let's say it's a Saturday and you're already out showing clients the properties, right? And they may send you a text message and you're like, let me deal with this later. It gets lost in translation, right? Next thing you know, they're in a builder's model home. Now, what you hope your client does is walk in and say, I'm represented by a real estate agent. And they're very clear with that builder, and then that builder will honor that relationship at that point.
Doesn't it become a he said, she said though at that point? Because I've had builders say, well, if you didn't bring them in, you didn't send them to me and call me first, then you're out of luck.
I would suggest that you have your card and you make the rep staple it to the registration form in front of you.
Well, and why I say that is sometimes I'm not with my clients when they decide to go to a model.
That's what I
home.
mean.
Yeah,
But
I see.
instructing them to do it, but it's really hard. People get antsy, like you say, and you're busy and they're out driving around. It's a
Right.
nice day, so.
And I'll say I've worked with several builder reps where my clients have walked in and they said, I'm working with Taylor. And then I get a text message from the builder rep say, hey, I just met your clients. They came through. What a great couple. Let me know how I can help. You know, and that type of situation happens as well. And I think that builders are understanding the value more and more of real estate agents. However, they're also understanding that they have more leverage than they ever had before because of the lack of inventory that we have. So it's a two-headed monster in that the builder reps want the agents to know who they are because they want the introduction to them when the buyers get frustrated in the market. So right now there's probably several different builders that are competing in a space of $350,000 to $550,000. It's a very competitive market for builders. And so if I'm representing buyers and all of a sudden they're like, this market's so tough, we don't know what to do anymore. Maybe we should look at some model homes. I got a great relationship with this guy over at Builder A. Let's go to this one. I've already been there before. That's what the builder rep wants us to know. However, what they don't want to do is pay the 3% if they don't have to, because let's be honest, it's a tight margin already right now with material costs going up for builders. A lot
It's
of input.
important to understand the spread also between what they get paid if there's no real estate agent involved, the model home rep. There's a different pay
For the rep?
for the rep. It's usually, they get 1 if we're involved, they get 1.5 to 2 if we're not involved. So that's,
That's inducement.
yeah, so maybe Michelle can speak to that, but I mean, that was always the case as I was in the business. I learned what they were getting paid because I hired some people from MI and they told me. So that's important for you to understand, that there's a different pay scale. But most would welcome us because it was volume, and the more real estate agents worked with you as a model home deal, and Krista Gardner would tell you that.
Yep.
The more money she made, even though the actual pay on the deal was less.
And I'm using myself as an example. So once again, I live in Evans Farm. And Evans Farm, if you are familiar with it, it's like a love-hate. You either love the community or it's like something you don't want anything a part of because there's no yards and it's not a traditional community in Central Ohio. But guess what? In my back pocket, I got the Pines at Berlin Station right up the street, which is a community where there's inventory. They're decent builders, and I've already probably closed 3 transactions. It will be my 3rd next month in the Pines at Berlin Station because I've received or talked to someone about Evans Farm, and then they realize that it's not what they want. But I now have an unbelievable relationship with both the reps, the Rockford and the MI rep up there, because they know who I am. I live in Evans Farm. Maybe they get someone that isn't Pines at Berlin Station material and they want Evans Farm and they send them to me. So I guess my point is build those relationships with the good reps that are out there. I've had clients and I just sent them a screenshot on my phone and said, hey, these are my clients. Can you register them? They might be coming by. I really don't know because they're just all over the place. And then they register them.
I have a question. Chris said, why not just go with your buyer at least the first time or have a rep on team go? So I know it's hard when they're out shopping around, but if you go out to a community together and hit all 3 or 4 builders to register them, doesn't that solve the issue?
Sure.
If you know they're out there.
Sunday drive.
Yeah, and I will say that, and that's a great scenario, right? And I would recommend that. I will say I've had consultations with buyers, and next thing you know, they're like, oh, those flags look so pretty as they're driving down the street, and like, let's go check those out just to see what that community's like.
Yeah.
And you have no clue. I mean, they could have been going to Burger King, and on the way back, they just see the model home, and they're like, this looks great. Let's swing on in. And then they love it. And you guys understand too, like builders want to do what we do for listings, right? We want to create an emotional connection to a buyer. Emotion drives people's decisions. It always has and it always will. And so when someone walks into a model home, they're going to see the bright flowers and the beautiful vase on the top. It's going to smell good. It's going to hit the senses, right? The smell, the touch, the feel. They're going to feel something when they get into it. There's a reason why they have model homes and they're not walking them through a house that's under framing. So they're going to feel something when they go in there, and it might be something that they're looking for going forward. You just got to be prepared for it. If you can educate them and you know, building is an option, then yeah, I would say, hey, on a Saturday, guys, let's plan to go hit up, you know, Rockford, MI, you know, DR Horton, Pulte, and get you guys registered. That way you can start looking at all the different elevations that you want.
Someone said if you register them, you have to register them in every community for that builder if they aren't sure which area they're looking to buy. Just a heads up.
Who said that?
I don't know, whoever's says owner.
That might be different from builder to builder.
Yeah.
I know I registered someone with Rockford.
Oh, Diana Piskowski.
Yeah.
Sue Van Workum team.
I registered someone with Rockford just by sending a screenshot of my client's contact information to them. And I said, hey, Lindsay, could you please register them in Rockford? I think they're starting to be open to new construction. And I do know on Sundays, they go and do what they want to do. So,
And we need to touch also, and maybe you've got this, is on the ones, the model home people that can cross-sell.
yeah, I don't know how much we got into that one.
But that happens with some builders and not with others, which is
Yep.
why the point of registering it at
Sure.
the place. But if you register with one that's allowed to cross-sell, then that's all you need to do.
She said Pulte and MI for sure is that way.
There you go.
I think I'm gonna be that card, you can cross that.
You can
Yeah,
cross-sell.
I think I've kind of
And I
can too.
think the Horton.
Yeah, Rachel Alley said MI can cross sell.
I was pretty sure that MI could cross-sell, and I think it's changing a lot right now.
It's very fluid.
Yeah, and so just register and just educate your clients. That's the biggest piece of it. You got to just make sure that you're in tune to where they're looking. Is the area where they're looking, they may say they want resale, but if there's new construction in the area that they're looking in, then have an idea that they may stumble into a model home at some point. Did I do this slide already?
You pretty much covered it before, but yeah, setting the expectation for them. And then I just had the exclusive right.
Yeah.
If you want to go that
Talk to Lori about this form if you have questions.
route.
And remember, it's a legal document, and it is binding.
Uh-huh.
We have enforced it.
So how to provide value in new construction? For me, I feel that educating your clients in advance on what is about to take place is probably the most important piece to adding that value. Because people think that a realtor in a traditional transaction, that they're going to be negotiating and doing all these things for them like they would in a traditional resale transaction. In new construction, it's a little bit different. It's more of a liability security to your clients than anything else. Be a part of the communication, like I mentioned. Ask questions. I had clients who were asking about, some outdoor spaces, and I'm not going to sit here and tell someone they should or they shouldn't do, but I'm also going to challenge it, or I'm going to ask them, this is what you're trying to accomplish for this space. If you do this, it might do this. Are you aware of that? Right? No, so just be in tune to what decisions are being made. One thing I did is when going through the interviewing process for several builders, I helped them facilitate that. I set up 4 Zoom calls with 4 different builders, and we set aside 30 minutes for each builder. And then afterwards, for 15 minutes, me and my clients discussed what we liked and disliked about that presentation. And then we narrowed it down to 2 builders based on the Zoom calls where we went into in person and had meetings with them, interviewed them even further, and then they ultimately decided on 1 builder. So that's another way you could add value. A lot of times though, if you're looking for, an MI or DR Horton, they have the communities already established. And so having the selection of builder is very limited. It's more about the community if you want that. But if you're into the semi-custom and custom, you're probably going to have a little bit more choice over which builder you want to use. And then, let's back up one. Who's representing the client? I don't know, I feel like Lori should be the one to talk on this because she's incredibly passionate about it. I am too, though, don't get me wrong. But understand, when we're working a traditional transaction, the contract that is being presented to the seller is drafted by the Columbus Board of Realtors. And it's a universal form, we hope, that real estate agents present, right? When you're working in new construction, you're going to be signing an agreement that the builder has drafted. It's a contract, it's a binding agreement the builder has drafted by the builder's attorneys. The builders are the sellers. And if the buyers are not represented by an agent, well, now the builder is representing the buyers as well, or the buyers representing themselves. And that's
the answer.
a liability.
Right. That's the answer. The builder is not representing.
So the builder is not representing them. The buyer is now representing themselves with a seller that has drafted their own contract and is representing
Correct.
And it's a slippery slope. It's a liability. And to be honest, the buyer will not have very much leverage in the transaction. So that's why they need someone that is going to be their fiduciary, that has a person like Lori in their back pocket.
Might not fit, but anyway. But I think it's important that people know
Right.
that they are on their own if they go into a model home without us. And that's a 30-page contract, which they cannot change the terms, and they think they can.
Right.
They cannot. So with us, we can counteroffer and back and forth and resale. None of that. So I think that's a valid, I think that's our value, is explaining that alone.
Yeah, that's a conversation you need to have at the consultation role. So here are the type of builders. These are typically what are classified as your production builders, your D.R. Hortons, your Fisher Homes, your M.I. Homes. Who else? I guess is Pulte. I thought Pulte got bought by D.R. Horton, but I've been getting dripped
That
on.
was Westport.
What was it? Westport?
Westport.
Oh, okay, there you go. So Pulte's still out there.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So those are kind of like your production builders. Ryan Homes is another one. Epcon is another one. So the benefit to a production builder is it's going to be much more cost effective, especially in this market. They are not as subject to material cost hikes. They will be, but it just happens over a gradual time. They also have a lot of their labor and they have a lot of their employees in-house where they are able to control a lot of that cost. Whereas if you're going to hire a trim carpenter with a custom home builder, well, guess what? 2 months later, that trim carpenter's hourly rate may have just gone up $10, $15. So these guys typically have their employees in-house. They can control their costs a little bit more. They can control their environment because they're typically acquiring land, subdividing that land, and then building the houses on the land. So they typically have a pretty good model and fixed cost going into that entire process that they can keep going forward. Typically only get small changes. They will have various elevations and floor plans for you to choose from. And then the client and the rep go in and they say, this is what we want, this is what we like. And then basically that house is already, there's no architect involved, or the architect was already involved. And then you just decide you want that, and you may be able to make some minor changes.
Factories are doing the framing actually, so.
Yeah, they're shipping the house on a flatbed truck, essentially, and they're just assembling it. It's like giant Lego pieces.
I know MI used to have a factory over in Indianapolis, and so if people think they're building a house, they're not. They're
Right.
just getting it shipped over.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny because there's certain builders out there that have a reputation, and I don't like every builder has a need, and you know, certain builders produce a very high-end product for certain people, and certain builders can produce at a much less cost per square foot, which is something that we need in this market. And there is value for that because a lot of people can't afford an $800,000 house. They need something that's $350,000 for their family of 5 that has 4 bedrooms. And to be honest, it may not have the best trim work. It may not have the best, you know, concrete work or whatever it is, but it fits their needs and it's something we need in this market. So then you have your semi-custom builders, people like Bob Webb, Trinity, 3Pillar. Those are some of the bigger ones. So I think 3Pillar did probably close to 60 some odd homes last year. Bob Webb was in the mid 40s. I don't know how many Trinity did. But so these builders have the capability to do a full custom home if you want. Where their bread and butter is having a portfolio of homes that they've already done that they can replicate at a discount, so to speak. So they've been around for so long and their product is out there for so long that they've probably built a custom home that may fit your client's needs, and they essentially can do that, not have to go back to an architect to redraft the whole thing. So that's why they have several plans to choose from. They typically will have their own architect on staff that can make minor changes. So let's say you see one floor plan that they built 3 years ago and it looks great, you love it, but you want to add double vanity and an additional mudroom or a bump out here or do some things different. They typically can cater those changes. They are going to be kind of in a higher price point than your full production builders because they typically can be higher end finishes.
Ready for the next one?
I'm ready. And then you have your full custom builders. Some of them out there, Member Homes, Bell Point, 12 doors down, Kendrick Fine Homes. These are full custom builds. So the benefit for these folks is they're going to ask you what your lifestyle is like. What's your current living situation? Do you utilize your formal, dining room? Do you need, laundry on the first floor, second floor? They're going to get into your life and they're going to create a product around that. So typically you're going to be paying a higher price per square foot for that kind of service. And a lot of times too, your general contractor is going to be someone pretty up in the company, like the owner or, someone that works 2 or 3 steps right below the owner. So what I have found is typically when you're working custom, semi-custom to production, custom, they're going to be holding their tradesmen a little bit more accountable. They're going to be in the property on, at least weekly, probably more likely daily basis to make sure that the finishes and the work and the things are to the standard of that specific builder. If you're working with more of a production builder, they're going to have hired contractors that are going to be involved in the process. It just may not be as detailed because they're overseeing several projects. What did we see on that sheet? 270 for like MI homes last year or something like that. So from a scale standpoint, I think MI completed probably 270 some odd projects last year. The largest semi-custom home builder was 3 Pillar and they were in the 60s.
How about Vermillion Hughes?
They're probably somewhere near Bob Webb, 40 to 60-ish.
And they're semi?
I
They can do full custom though, no?
I'm sure they can and they will. I think that their bread and butter is being kind of like, let's save on some of that design cost and use a project that we've already done.
Mhm.
And I think that that's a natural progression, right? Because if you have these plans in house and you can share them with someone and it saves them money, then why not? So for example, I think Member Homes did somewhere around 20 last year, 20 to 25. I know Bell Point did somewhere around 12. And so someone asked about my builder. My builder was Bell Point Company. They were family friends of ours, and I know the owner really well, and I know that he's a very attention to detail type of individual, so that's why we felt comfortable working with him. I've worked with 3 Pillar, Bob Webb. Holly Lockett in our market center. She works with Bob Webb quite often, so if you have questions about that product, I would certainly lean on her. But yeah, it'll typically be a higher price point, but you're going to get a product that is specific to you and you only. Commissions. We tried to get commissions from quite a few different builders. Some were receptive, some weren't. But this is, I guess, the purpose of this slide is not only just to communicate to you what commissions are being offered by what builders, but for everyone to understand that it's all over the place.
Yep.
You never know. So like you can look at like DR Horton is 3% on final purchase price. And then if you look at someone like MI Homes, it's 3% of the base price. Like I represented someone that closed on an MI home last year. The base price for the property was like $330,000, but they also wanted $120,000 of upgrades that the realtor isn't compensated on. Typically, when you're working with semi-custom and custom, the majority of the time that's going to be 3%. It's within that industry, and they build those margins into their product. So I wouldn't say anticipate it, but make sure you protect yourself. But it's pretty standard that we see some of the semi-custom guys offering 3%. Rockford, you can see is 3%. Fisher,
Of the price at the time of contracts.
right. So if they make some updates and upgrades, you won't get paid on that.
Right.
But what's different from MI Homes in Rockford, Rockford is the time of contract. So that's a contract price, and typically your upgrades aren't as much. So for example, if it's MI has a base model, right? It's guts essentially. And then if you want to do a bump out, the upgrades with the MI can be much more significant than something of a contract price, which is Rockford. And you can see Miranda. Too bad we didn't get Ryan up here. I know we tried to. They're all over the place too.
Ryan is a flat fee.
It depends, I think, on the build, because they have 2 or 3 different lines right now that they're building in various price points. And I think like their lower end, almost like their ranch patio models, yeah, it's like $3,000. And then if you go up one more level, it may be 2% or something like that. Fisher Homes is giving you, if you close 2 homes with Fisher Homes this year, congratulations, you go on a little vacation. Yeah.
So we have no Pulte up there, so what are they doing? We'll find that out. Well, maybe some of our newer people that went out and had that assignment can tell us.
Yeah, we can ask. Anyone know what Pulte's offering from a commission standpoint? Chat it up.
The same as MI Homes, so 3% on a base price.
Is that what you mean?
Yep, yep, you said 3% base price.
3% on base, okay,
Thanks, Whitney.
good.
D.R. Horton will pay $4,000 on some of their spec homes. They'll send out an email like every week.
Like a
So-
bonus?
Yeah, they do.
4%, yeah.
So if they have excess inventory in certain areas, sometimes DR Horton, I'll see those emailed too, where they're saying, hey, we're offering 4% on these homes.
That's smart business.
Just to
Yes.
try and, incentivize realtors to communicate it to their clients a little bit more.
Smart.
And then we just have
There
builder
we are.
reps.
Builder reps. So here are the people that helped us out with our presentation. Holly, like I said, she works alongside Bob Webb. She does a great job. Michelle Simpkins with DR Horton. Eric Jenkins, I've worked with him on a few MI homes. He's right now up in the Pines at Berlin Station. And then Brian Smith is with 3 Pillar. He's in the Evans Farm model right now. Lindsay, and then that handsome man over there is Zach Small. He's with Trinity.
Other half of our Whitney.
Half of our Whitney, yeah. We got the better half though.
Yeah. I didn't say, but.
Yeah. So that's kind of the end of the slideshow, and I hope there's some questions. I know, has anything came across in the chat box? And before we go to think of your questions, I know Whitney has worked in the new construction area, maybe due to the relationship with Zach and things like that. But Whitney, what have any trends, well, let me ask this, how do you add value to your clients when they decide that they want new construction? Because I think that that's a very challenging, like, it's almost, as a realtor, you're like, hold on, I really don't have to do, and I can monitor things until it's necessary. And that's kind of hard for a real estate agent to understand in a lot of ways. Have you felt that?
Yeah, I think it's all about setting the expectation at the beginning of it, of we're here to solve problems and to help you, be confident in a purchase. And then that communication, we have systems on our end once we get a little bit closer to the closing to make sure everybody's being communicated with. But it's really all about setting those expectations with the client up front of who's going to be in contact with them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is kind of a question for anyone. The pandemic or coronavirus has really changed the way people are looking at purchasing homes. I've seen, in talking to Brian, he's like, I can't tell you how many times people are walking in my door now and telling me they need 2 offices, or they need an office and a flex space, right? Or they need a place now, like the playrooms for kids these days are like much bigger. Like they need a designated area just to store things, because the way we work, the way we communicate, the way we operate as a family has changed in a lot of ways. Have you, as anyone, I'll start with Whitney, have you sensed that? Are there any other trends that you're aware of?
Yeah, that's a big one. And like you said, office space is huge. I know in most of these production builds, they all have that front room that could be used as a dining room if need be, but it can also, they can add doors to it for an office or for the play space. So I'm seeing a lot of people putting doors on it to have that extra livable space. That's probably the
Yep.
big one. Also making sure, you know, a lot of them are considering the community that they're buying, you know, what's around it, what's in the community that they can, you know, is there a park that they can take the kids to? You know, what kind of amenities that has as well.
Yeah, that's great. We, when we built above our garage, so we could finish that out at a later date when my parents or my wife's parents get older, and it could be a place where they can come and stay for a duration of time. So it'll have a full bathroom. It'll have like a I won't call it a wet bar, but an area where you can get water and wash dishes if you need to, and like a mini fridge, right? Because that's going to be something that we want available to our parents when they get a little bit older, so they can be around the grandchildren a little bit more. And I think maybe we were pioneers, but I certainly think that that's the way people are building also going forward. They're looking for like ways to maximize square footage, and space above the garage is one of those areas where you can do that, where it wasn't traditionally thought of to build above the garage.
I'd like to ask Michelle, since she is licensed with us and a builder rep, how important it is to have that good realtor relationship, because she appreciates how hard we work. Would you want to speak to that, Michelle?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I love about D.R. Horton is that we truly do value our realtor relationships. So, I mean, a couple of things that that you guys talked about earlier, you know, if somebody walks in without their agent, we are that builder that Taylor was talking about that will text the realtor and say, hey, I just met with your clients. So we don't really have that strict policy that the agent has to be there. So yeah, I mean, we know how hard you guys work, and I have a couple of other sales reps that have their license. So that's the one thing that I'm really proud of with D.R. Horton. And that's why we pay the 3% on the final purchase price.
Right. And I think it's a tough environment out there right now, and you know, it's hard. You have to protect your business too, but in the end, having a relationship with other realtors will be for the long haul the best thing you could do, because there will be times when it'll be back to realtor referral.
Mm-hmm.
And
Most
so
definitely.
that's good. So are you seeing changes in some of the building or design concepts?
Great question.
Well, I have seen, I mean, our build time has been delayed. So, you know, we used to quote like 6 months build time, and now it's, you know, 6 to 8.
You gotta
give or
try to
take.
turn up the volume because we can't hear you. Maybe turn up yours too. I don't know if that helps.
You gotta be very slippery, because then it goes into
Echo.
mode.
Okay, answer that again.
Is that better?
A little bit.
Is that better?
Yeah, I think the Zoom, you guys should be able to hear Michelle through the Zoom. It's probably just us in the office.
Just us in the training room can't hear you so well, but answer the question anyway, if you would.
So, yeah, I mean, we've seen, there's several impacts that we have experienced with COVID. Our build time is probably the biggest one. Just like the biggest delays, just trying to get lumber, windows, siding has been an issue. So, yeah, so I mean, that's the biggest thing. But yeah, I mean, we are seeing those clients that come in and they do want 2 dens, they do need some extra living space. We are seeing, you know, people that used to love living downtown and like in the Short North area. Well, both of them are working from home. So now they've decided to move it to the suburbs. So yeah, we've gone through lots of change because of what's been going on the last year.
Where else is D.R. Horton building in Ohio?
We are from Marysville to Granville. We have Commercial Point in the south. We have Galena, I'm up here in Galena right now. Delaware, we just opened up a new community in Delaware, which is an Olentangy school. So we're throughout the surrounding areas of 270.
This morning I got an email saying that Dayton, Toledo, and Cleveland are now sharing listings.
Oh.
So I don't know what that means. Are you building anywhere in those other places?
We are not.
Okay,
Not that I know of. I have not heard that.
yeah. So I have to find out what that means, but they're cross-selling.
Interesting.
Any other questions out there, guys? How long does this go? An hour? A little over?
Yeah,
I
we're
thought it went to like
2:08, but we're good.
Yeah. Well, if there's no other questions, feel free to reach out to me, Whitney, any of these reps that you guys saw on the slideshow here with questions. I know I didn't capture probably everything that I wanted to or everything that's out there, but I think it's just important to be able to have this option available for your clients and to be able to talk to them at a high level about building. You don't need to know everything about the building process. Rely on the sales rep for that, but understand when it's about time to start making that introduction to building and know what those talking points are about what they're looking for in order to introduce, a builder rep to the equation into the relationship. Anything else, Lori?
No, I was just gonna say, is everybody here that we've got, are they cross-selling within their companies?
I don't know. I know Brian can sell anywhere. I know Rockford can sell anywhere because I texted Lindsay about that. I'm
I
sure
would say
Zach can,
all the
Trinity, I think,
production
they don't
builders
have. Oh,
Can
Wendy,
cross sale, it's just Pulte who does not.
you hear what he said?
It's just Pulte.
Louder. I'll return it back down.
I can make it back.
Chat it if you would, Whitney.
Yeah.
And how about Michelle?
DR
Michelle, can you cross sell?
Yes.
Could you chat it?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, the sound system in here is messed up, so it won't.
Yeah, we'll work through it.
I don't want to pierce everyone's eardrums.
Also, thanks for Rachel. She put this slideshow together and I'm a hot mess when it comes to the information that's in my brain. So to try and put it in some sort of organized fashion is a challenge. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you both.
So DR Horton can cross sell. So if you are looking at DR Horton, Michelle Simpkins can certainly help you out there. All right, there's no other questions, guys. Feel free to reach out if you have anything. And thank you.
Yeah.